Welcome to the real world. My name is Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode 59 of the Real World Podcast. We're talking all about maritime movies. Thank you again for joining us. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos here at the Real World. If you're a movie fan, you're in the right place. We're talking all about movies set on the water, or maritime movies, or nautical films. Any movie that's set on the water, we're going to be discussing in this one, whether that's on the ocean, on rivers, on lakes. All of that's going to be included here. But before we kick off our top 5 maritime movies, we're going to talk about some movie news. First of all, Creature Commandos has been confirmed to be 7 episodes. The first season is going to kick off next year on Max. James Gunn wrote all the episodes. The cast has been revealed recently. And so that should be a lot of fun. I'm definitely looking forward to this, which is the first official project in the new DCU. Wonder Woman 3 is not happening. We don't really know. There's been a lot of mixed messaging this week. Gal Gadot was interviewed promoting her new film, Heart of Stone, now on Netflix. And she claims that James Gunn and Peter Safran confirmed to her that they are going to be developing Wonder Woman 3. However, this has not been confirmed by the studio, so we're not actually sure if it's happening. Some sources told Collider this week that it's not in development. Maybe it's not actively in development yet, but it will be eventually. Is it going to be a reboot? It's been kind of a mess over at DC recently, and so this is just kind of adding fuel to the already raging fire. Time will tell. Disney Plus increasing their prices again, going up to $15 per month. That is going to be the new required subscription for Disney Plus subscribers. That is going to be the new cost for Disney Plus subscribers per month. They've, of course, added some movies recently, including Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Little Mermaid is set to arrive on September the 6th. So they're definitely putting out content, but is it going to be worth it for subscribers to stick around? Again, we'll have to just wait and see. Suicide Squad director's cut is supposedly on its way. David Ayer took to Twitter recently to let fans know that James Gunn told him that his version of the 2016 film will have its time, supposedly meaning that it will get a release at some point. We don't know if this is going to be a theatrical release. It's going to be straight to Max. If it'll be straight to Blu-ray, we're not sure. We'll just have to wait and see what they end up doing with this. But it sounds very promising that the Ayer cut will finally get released. The actors and writers are still on strike. Negotiations have not worked out so far between the studios and the writers and the actors. So the Actors and Writers Guilds are both still on strike. We'll have to wait and see exactly what this means for the future of the industry. It's obviously having big impacts on box office right now. Movies aren't making as much money because they aren't being promoted by the actors. And so this is becoming a big problem in Hollywood. Some are predicting it could cause the entire industry to implode. I don't think I would go that far yet, but it's definitely not looking good for the future of movies. Now that we've just had this resurgence of films recently after the pandemic, this is definitely hurting the industry in many ways, but we'll have to wait and see if it ends up making things better or worse in the long run. All right, so that's it for movie news. Now it's time to jump into our main topic, that is maritime movies. Joining me is Bert. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm great. How's it going, Cam?
Doing well. Thanks for joining me again on this episode 59. We're talking about maritime movies. Of course, there's a couple of movies that came out recently that kind of made us think about this. One is The Meg 2, which is now in theaters, and the other one is The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is in theaters right now. Both of those movies take place mostly on the water, and so that was kind of our idea. Bert actually came up with this whole idea of talking about movies that take place on water. I'm like, are there really a lot of those? But then when I thought, I was like, wow, there are actually a lot of those movies out there. So it was kind of tough to come up with a list. Bert, what was kind of your thoughts going into this discussion here?
On the water, but not under.
Right.
Something that was key. And not 100% of the movie has to be on water. I went with the majority of the film is on water. I also I decided to stay away from pirate films just because I feel like that's its own category, and it's fine if you have some included here, but there's so many others that I think I'd like to include. And pirates can just get their own thing someday.
Yeah,
By the way, uh, going back though, did you see the first Meg?
I did.
Yeah, yeah. What did you think of it?
I'm not a fan. I'm not, it's not
Not a fan.
not a yeah. I wanted to like it, but I couldn't get into it for whatever reason. Like I always need like some like kind of like a character that I really like, or the story has to be compelling in some way. That just kind of felt to me more like kind of a silly shark movie. Like there wasn't much substance to it. And I just wasn't really entertained by it. Did you enjoy it?
I did, yeah. Well,
Okay.
I like Rainn Wilson a lot, so it was just
Mm.
for mostly comedy, some slight scares, and then of course I always try to watch things in 3D, so 3D was really good in it too. So it was just like a guilty pleasure kind of movie, but I enjoyed it quite a bit actually. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Great.
Sorry, but going back to your thoughts on our topic of the day here.
Yeah, yeah, much the same as you. I mean, any movie that takes mostly on water. I mean, and there's very few films that are only on water, So yeah, definitely looked at the films that took place mostly on the water. Rewatched a few this week. Most of the movies are on a ship of some kind, a boat or
Right.
something that people are kind of sailing the oceans. Some of mine are set on different bodies of water, like lakes or rivers. So I did take those into account as well. I did exclude pirate movies like you did because there are so many just pirate movies
Yeah.
that I decided to just exclude those. That'll be a separate podcast one day. And like you said, anything underwater. So no submarines either. I didn't even consider any submarine movies because there's a lot of
Or boats
those.
underwater, that'd be a separate thing.
Exactly.
It's funny. I watched Sully, and then I realized this does not really take place on water. The main event does, but
Right.
it's a pretty small part of the film. So I did not
Yeah.
include Sully in my review.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, submarines, that's a whole sub genre, if you will.
Oh,
Um yeah, rim shot. So yeah, that's something that I was thinking about because there are some really good submarine movies. But yeah, we decided to exclude those, save those for another day, and we're just doing movies that take place on top of the water. So yeah, I think I'm ready to go. You ready to get started?
yes.
Okay, so before we get into our top five list, we do have some honorable mentions we wanted to talk about. Like I said, there's more of these movies than I expected there were, so I wanted to talk about a few. One is a classic from the early 40s. I think it came out in 1940. It's with Errol Flynn, who many will know as Robin Hood back in the day. He did a movie called The Sea Hawk, which is a really cool movie. It's all black and white, but it's a fun kind of adventure film. So that's definitely worth checking out if you're into those type of classic Hollywood films. And then another one I like from the 50s is called The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. So Sinbad the Sailor, he's a character that's been around in fiction for a long time in books and novels. They've made several movies about him. This is one of my favorites. It's really well done, and it's got great old like stop motion effects. Ray Harryhausen did all the effects in it,
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's really fun. It's got some creatures he battles and things like that. So that's a really fun one to watch. And then another one that's similar to that is called Jason and the Argonauts. That's based in Greek mythology, and that one's a lot of fun too. And then the next one I'll mention, getting into the 1970s, is a movie called Deliverance with Burt Reynolds, John Voight, Ronnie Cox, and Ned Beatty. This is a movie that is like super intense, kind of a horror movie. Honestly, it's just like a survival horror film about these four guys from the city that they want to kind of take this trip on this river and have fun on the weekend, and it goes south very quickly. And they run into all kinds of craziness. So that one's worth watching if you want a kind of an intense movie experience. And then last one I'll mention for now is Waterworld, which I just have a blast with. It's basically Mad Max on the ocean, is what I call it. It's like this post-apocalyptic, big budget action movie with Kevin Costner and Dennis Hopper, who I'm a big fan of. So it's a fun movie. I've enjoyed it a number of times. It's not a masterpiece. It didn't make the top five, but I still get a kick out of it.
I'll follow up on that with I did rewatch Waterworld. It was like a 1995 film out. I was actually working at the theater at the time, so it was I think it was a decent hit. It's that famous movie that went super over budget. They fired the
Right.
director, and Kevin Costner ended up finishing it. And I got to say, I didn't really enjoy it much this time
Okay.
through. It's just his character is so I guess selfish, and he basically accosts the two feet, the woman and her daughter.
Right.
And he does, his character does come back around by the end,
Yeah.
but the action is just so it's just not very good, and
Yeah.
it's silly at times. Some of the lines that you just kind of groan, and you're like, oh man. So
Right.
I just did not. I'd give it me like 2.5 stars at this point.
Okay.
I don't know why, but it wasn't as good as I had remembered.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I'm only at 3.5 on it, so I enjoyed it a little more than
Oh
you, but
yeah,
it's not, like I said, it's not a masterpiece or anything. It's just kind of I guess one of those sort of guilty pleasure ones, you put on
yeah.
every once in a while.
I like the concept. I
Yeah,
really like
it's a cool idea.
the setup. But yeah, it just didn't hold up for me.
Gotcha. You want to give me a couple other one of your other honorable
Yeah,
mentions?
sure. And a couple of these might be on your list actually, of your top five. It's hard to say, but Master and Commander. This is another one I'd seen one time when it first came out, and so I rewatched it, and it's interesting. More modern films. I mean, this is now getting on quite a few years too, but in the CGI era, like I couldn't tell if they really filmed it all on the water or not. So I mean, the CGI, if it's there, is pretty good. There's a few films like that I'll probably say that about today.
Yeah.
And the editing is really good. The lighting's really good. It's a good drama, but the kind of like with Waterworld, like the main character, the captain here, it just after a while, I just kind of wanted to punch him because he's just he's smug and does like makes a lot of wrong-headed decisions. And I don't know, I was just kind of losing my patience with this guy. So by the end, I just kind of wanted to get off that ship. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, just a little too long. So it's a well-made drama, but I mean, I'm down to about 3 stars on that one at this point.
Gotcha.
I'll mention All Is Lost, a movie
Hmm.
starring Robert Redford, and I think he's the only guy in the cast. So the entire you got it right there, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like Castaway in that sense that you got this one guy that's he has to be the entertainment for the whole movie. I don't think he talks really at all. There's no Wilson character, and so it's a good film. I don't really love the way it kind of wraps up. It's sort of kind of dreamy as opposed to like the conclusion of this really sort of tense, almost like action film. So I don't love the ending, but that's a pretty good film. Again, I like sort of the setup, and I like movies that have a simple premise if it can entertain. Um,
Yeah.
he's kind of like MacGyver.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to watch him because it's almost like you're sitting there and he doesn't know you're there, and you're just kind of watching what he does, and you don't know why he's doing what he's doing until he does it. Like, why is he
Yeah.
fastening that thing there? Oh, and you realize he really knows what he's doing. So that's
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting. So it's good, but it's not great.
Yeah, this to me, honestly, this was really close to making my top five because I really like this movie. I think his performance is so good. Anytime an actor can be on screen by themselves and hold your attention, it's pretty incredible stuff. Very few actors have even tried to do that. And so I'm a big fan of this movie. It was very close to making it. So yeah, it's in my honorable mentions, but it was pretty close to making my top five, honestly.
One more thing about that, there's not a lot of music in the film, and I feel like if there was more of a punchy, edgy score,
Mm,
then I might have liked it better because it might have made it more intense. I also want to mention that there's a very similar movie to that one called The Boat from
mm,
2018. I'm sure it's a very small independent film. There's one
mm.
guy in the cast, exact same premise pretty much. That one, spoilers for anybody who might want to seek it out. It's a little more of a supernatural element to it.
Okay.
The things that happen to him maybe aren't all of his own doing. Actually, he does a lot of stupid things as opposed to Robert Redford's character who does a lot of smart things. But yeah, that one's a decent movie too, actually. I mean,
Gotcha.
it's
Okay.
two and a half stars. The Boat.
Okay. Cool. Cool. On
A
the
couple, and then I got one
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, I'm got to mention, of course, Titanic. You know, it's all-time great film. Just didn't quite make it on the list for me. Um, the third Narnia film, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, I think is an excellent movie. It's mostly on the water again. They're on a boat called the Dawn Treader, as they're, it's a fantasy movie, like the first two, and it does a really good job with its whole story. I did consider Battleship briefly because I actually do like it. It's not a great movie, it's maybe 3 stars, but it's one that I have fun watching. It's one of those movies that I think the theater experience. I went and saw it with my brother when it first came out, and in the movie, the character eats a frozen burrito at one point, and we went and got frozen burritos after, and it's just made a memorable experience for us. So we still talk about it to this day, even though the movie's not great. Had to mention a couple of these in The Finest Hours. Disney made this a few years back. It's a true story about the Coast Guard rescue off the coast of Boston. Really well made, really good cast. It's a little slow, a little slowly paced.
Yeah,
I think
that's
is
my problem
probably
with it.
yeah, that's probably my only issue with it. But I think the performances are really good. Chris Pine, Ben Foster, Casey Affleck, they all do a great job here. So that's a solid movie if you haven't seen it. Deepwater Horizon, I really enjoy this one. I think this is an excellent movie made by Peter Berg recently. It's, I think, his best movie he's made yet. And Mark Wahlberg, Kurt Russell's in there, Kate Hudson, Dylan O'Brien, Gina Rodriguez, John Malkovich. It's really, really good cast, really well made. It's, a true story, and it's one of these true stories that, unlike Finest Hours, I feel like it actually has a good pace to it. It's pretty short. It's under 2 hours. So I did enjoy this one. Really incredible effects work, and again, a true story, which always makes it more kind of impactful. And then lastly, In the Heart of the Sea. This is Ron Howard, giving us another true story. Like we've talked about how he's kind of the master of telling true stories on screen.
Right.
And I think he does a great job with this. I think an issue I had with it initially is I had just read the book before I watched the movie, and it made me not like the movie as much. Now that there's been some time rewatching it, or actually just rewatched this one last night, I enjoyed it a lot more. I think the whole cast is great. Hemsworth, Cillian Murphy, Tom Holland is in this. It's really well acted, and they go through some harrowing things. I mean, these again, another true story that's kind of just incredible that these guys survived this at all, and they do a really good job depicting it on screen. So had to mention that one as well.
Yeah, and I do the opposite. I watch the movie and then I never read the book. I'm gonna go back to Deepwater Horizon for a second. I did not have the same impression from that one. First time yesterday, one I wanted to see for a while. And I didn't hate the film, but
Mm,
there's a lot of technical jargon, and they try to
mm,
explain it with some overlaid text and that kind of thing.
right.
It felt like that you're waiting for the incident to happen. It doesn't happen
Mm,
until 52 minutes into the film, and then when the incident, this big calamitous incident happened. Well, first of all, that okay, I was about to say the shower scene with Kurt Russell was amazing, but that's not what I mean. The scene where he's in the shower and he gets blown back like,
right.
it was quite an impact. It was very effective, that
Yeah.
shot. But after that, there's so much explosions and things falling and mud and fire. You know how you feel like a director's done their job if they keep you oriented as to where things are and
Mm,
what's happening and why, what's this place and what's next, why are they taking that pipe down, like what, like I just could not get like a pulse on what they were trying to do
mm.
for the whole rest of the runtime.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I mean,
Right.
it looked interesting, lots of
Yeah.
CGI fire and
Yeah.
things crashing down, a lot of people dying and stuff. I mean, I get that, but I just couldn't orient myself as to time and space where things are. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it was kind of frustrating in that sense. So it was pretty well made, but I honestly kind of feel like the director failed a little bit in that sense.
Mm. I hear you. Yeah, it can get a little confusing. I actually get that criticism. I think that makes sense. I think it adds to the sense of urgency and the kind of puts you in their shoes a little bit. Like, where are they going? What are we doing? Like, that kind of thing. So it doesn't bother me as much, maybe. But I get what you're saying.
Well, there are, yeah, and that's a good point. There are
Yeah.
times where I'm watching a film and I'm like, I'm feeling kind of just like the character,
Yeah.
like Guy Pearce's character from Memento. Like you're kind of
Right.
also going, what's going on?
Yeah.
You feel kind of like the person on the screen. So that can also work. But
Yeah.
I feel like they could have spent some of that 52 minutes or some of the runtime at least, um, making it so that I understood things a little better. And I
Yeah.
think that they mostly failed at that, but it wasn't terrible. Like it was still pretty good.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Kurt Russell's shower scene.
Yes. All right. Did you have another one? Those are all mine.
Oh, I had one more, and that is the Poseidon Adventure from
Oh,
1973.
yeah.
This is one I watched on a rerun on TV as a child,
Okay.
and scared the dickens out of me because there are some horrifying things that happen. And I tend to like disaster films in general, and
Mhm.
this one's done pretty well, especially for the year it was made.
Oh.
I really like this idea that the water's constantly rising, and they have to keep basically go through a fun house to try to get
Right.
to the
Right.
top. I mean, it's kind of a
Yeah.
ludicrous thing that they could pull this off, but it's just a fun ride. So I enjoy that film. There's a newer one, the 2008 one. Saw
Hmm.
that one in the theater, and it's decent. I wouldn't say it's any better than the original,
Okay.
but both are kind of fun to watch.
Yeah. I still need to see the remake. Kurt Russell's in that too, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And but
Uh,
I have seen the original and I like it a lot.
oh yeah, I was just say keep your expectations low for the remake, and I think you'll find it's mildly entertaining.
Gotcha, gotcha. I did watch I didn't even know until this week that there's a sequel titled Beyond the Poseidon Adventure. Have you heard of this?
No.
This is a real movie they made just not too long after the original, and it stars Michael Caine and Sally Field. It's not good. It's not good.
Ship that flipped.
Well, it's actually the idea is cool because Michael Caine's the captain of this salvage vessel, and he comes up on the Poseidon shipwreck,
Oh,
and he's like, "Oh, I bet there's stuff in there. I like money and stuff and valuables I can get." He's kind of like a pirate almost,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he goes in and tries to, and he finds there's still survivors there, and like it's pretty interesting. It's kind of an interesting idea. It's just not
Yeah,
super
yeah.
well executed, you know.
Oh,
I'd say it's probably worth a watch, especially if you like the first movie. It's not terrible, but it's just not like it never quite reached the level of the first one for me. So last one I had to mention, I just remembered this as you were talking. It's a movie called The Shallows with Blake
I saw
Lively.
that.
It's really good. She's basically just out on like a buoy as a shark is circling her. She's a surfer and she finds herself stranded out there. It's really good.
That sounds
Um,
pretty good.
yeah, I like that movie a lot. So that's my last one. Okay, we are ready for our top five maritime movies set on the water. Bert, why don't you start us off?
Okay, and it's the Voyage of the Dawn Treader is my number
Oh,
five.
nice. Great.
Yeah, obviously I think it's the third one of the trilogy, right?
Yes.
I need to sit down and watch the trilogy all the way through. I've never actually done that.
Yeah, they're
Um,
good.
so what's really funny here is you got this young Will Poulter, and to know what he and turns out when he grows up and does some other movies in the future, it's kind of interesting to see him here. He's quite a spunky little kid,
Yeah.
in this film. He's like perfectly casted if that's what they're going for. He was a really good actor at his
Yeah.
age.
Oh, yeah.
And I forgot that he was that guy, and realized that when I rewatched. Um, so there's a fair amount of visuals in the movie, and I think that like the creatures, I think they all look pretty good. This is another one where I think they use a lot of CGI, and often I can't tell. Like there's a little bit of CGI where I'm like, yeah, that looks okay, but
Yeah.
there's some scenes on the boat and things like that where I'm like, I don't think they actually set sail, right? This has got to be CGI. It just looks really good.
Yeah.
So if they
Yeah.
can pull that off, then job well done.
Right.
There's some really good sword play. There's some great sets, some really nice cinematography, and some good action scenes. And this is a sort of fun for the whole family kind of film, which is always nice. The ship itself, the Dawn Treader, is I really like the look of it. It's very unique. It's almost piratish, but not really. And then I also kind of get some Labyrinth vibes from this film.
Oh,
There's that
yeah.
scene where they have the little tiny people, right? And
Right.
things like that. There's a few Henson-esque sort of vibes with some of the creatures and the
Yeah.
humor, actually. The British characters,
Right.
that are part of that lot and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And of course, there's definitely some Lord of the Rings influence on the
Mm.
series. I think the first one came out right after Lord of the Rings, and that's probably I get the feeling that's why these movies kind of have that look and feel, is because Lord of the Rings were hugely successful. They're not on that scale, but all three films in this series I think are good. The score is really good. A lot of it's kind of holdover from the first couple films though, and it does rely a little bit too much on the CGI, like with that sea beast and stuff. Like it's a fun scene and that kind of thing. Yeah, I didn't see it actually going in that direction either. That they were going to
Yeah,
fight this beast. I probably read the books. I'm almost certain I did when I was really young, but
yeah,
I don't remember them. That's what I
right,
used to read when I was
right.
young. But overall, I mean, this is just a really fun fantasy mystery kind of film.
Yeah, it is. It's really good. I feel like it's a little underrated, honestly. I think the first one gets so much praise and attention, and deservedly so. It's a fantastic film. The second one, I know it had a lower box office. I think I'm pretty sure. And then Disney sold the rights to Fox, and Fox made the third one. But they kept the cast, which is always nice when you can keep the same actors around. And so, yeah, I think it's really well done. I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, C.S. Lewis, he was such a prolific writer, and friends with J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings, so,
Exactly. Yeah.
they definitely had, a great friendship and similar kind of styles of writing, and both have these kind of big fantasy epics that they produced over their lifetimes, and tons of Christian allegories. They were both believers, and so there's a lot of scenes in Voyage of the Dawn Treader that are really moving. Particularly, I always remember, spoilers if you haven't seen it, but Eustace becomes this dragon, and at the end of the film, Aslan has to breathe on him in order to transform him back into a human being, and that's just such an effective, moving moment for me that I stands out in my mind whenever I think about that movie. It deals with a lot with temptation. We have a cameo by Tilda Swinton as the White Witch coming back, and
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
tempting. So that was all well done. All just very well shot, like you said. A lot of CGI, but it really holds up, and it's very effective. So yeah, great movie. All right, on to my number 5 pick, which is one of my daughter's favorites, Moana. So this is a movie that we watch all the time. We really enjoy this movie. It's so much fun. Original title of it was Oceania. So I'm glad they changed the title. I think it fits a lot better, sticking with the kind of main character and simplifying it. It was nominated for Best Animated Feature the year it came out, which I think was 2016, and also nominated for Best Original Song. It had a budget of 175 million, which is a pretty big budget for a Disney animated film at the time, but ended up grossing over 682 million worldwide. So big hit. John Musker and Ron Clements are the directors behind this. Now these guys have been at Disney for decades. The first movie they directed was The Great Mouse Detective, which was way back in the 80s. They also directed The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, Treasure Planet, and The Princess and the Frog. So these guys are Disney staples. They've been around the studio for a long time, and they're just really fantastic directors, really smart storytellers. They really utilize every tool at an animator's disposal, right? I mean, so you have such unique character designs. Like I love how Maui looks, and Moana has a very specific look. Even Hey Hey the chicken, has a very specific kind of look to him. Tamatoa, the big crab they battle, and all this stuff. Just very memorable character designs, which I think is important for animation. It's got a great runtime, hour 47 minutes. It breezes by, it just really moves along at a good pace. Going back to the music, which I said it was nominated for, Mark Mancina did the music. He worked under Hans Zimmer for a long time and has done a lot of great scores. The original songs were written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who of course everyone now knows is the guy behind Hamilton and In the Heights, and he did Tick Tick Boom for Netflix. So he's become a filmmaker, and just really good, really catchy. Very memorable music, very kind of rousing and kind of uplifting in many ways. Just really find the music very effective here. Again, beautifully animated. The way the water looks is incredible. I feel like water is kind of hard to get right in animation, and they just nail it here. It looks phenomenal. It really is incredible to look at. Just beautiful. And I like, our protagonist Moana. She's very much on a personal quest, and she's a very active protagonist, right? So we've talked about this before, where you really want the hero of your movie, to be an active force in the story. You don't want things to just happen to them and then react. You really want them to kind of be the driving force of the story, and she definitely is here, and we see that a lot throughout the entire movie. She's got a very specific mission she's on. She's going for it, and she's not holding back. And I like that kind of tenacious young character. A good hero, good example for young people. Awili Kravhalo, if I'm pronouncing that right, voices her, and she does a phenomenal job. She also sang for the character as well, so she's the singing voice and the voice actor. Of course, Dwayne Johnson, we got to talk about Maui, who just, to me, his personality is so big and just really comes through in this movie. He's got a great character arc himself, kind of a redemptive character arc that he goes through, which I just think is tons of fun. He, again, did his own singing in it as well, so very talented guy. I like how the mythology of the film feels very authentic, and the filmmakers, there's a lot of behind the scenes on here where the filmmakers talk about how they consulted with Polynesian culture, and tried to really draw on their mythology for the movie. And so they just do a great job with all of that. I think it really all does feel authentic, and it's just got kind of an excitement to it, a lot of life and fun. So really has everything you could want in a family film. It's also hilarious. We're cracking up throughout it, all the different characters and their interactions and everything. Very unique villain. What they do with the villain in this is super unique and really impactful, in a way that I think is really, really, really well done. So yeah, we're all big fans of Moana here. Have you seen this one?
Yeah, we've seen it many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Dwayne Johnson he's really playing himself in a remake, a live action remake. Is that true?
Yes, he's going to play Maui again in the live action version. They just announced this. Yeah, we talked about this on the podcast a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, did I dream that? He's probably thinking, man, why didn't you just film me while I was doing
Right.
the voices? Yeah,
Hey, he gets paid twice. I'm sure he's fine with
yeah, he
it.
already knows all the lines. So
Right.
homework's done.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's my number five. Bert, what do you have at number four?
I've got Captain Phillips at number 4.
Oh,
And
nice.
this is such an exciting film.
Yeah.
Hanks, he's got such an iconic voice that when he can disappear into a character, whether it's the Terminal or one of these kind of roles, you just marvel at it because his voice is just so distinct, and he does. I think he really disappears. This captain's, like all business, and I feel like I'm not even thinking, oh, that's Tom Hanks after 5 minutes. Brilliant, and he mostly nails the New England accent. Paul Greengrass directs this. He's really good at directing intense films. This movie gets intense, and it pretty much never lets up. All the crew and everything on this is in top form. What I like too is there's a guy named Michael Chernus. He plays a cargo first mate, and I thought, I wonder if this guy really does that in real life. So I looked him up, and no, he's an actor. He just that's how good the casting was. I thought, what if they brought like a real crewman, on
Yeah.
board? And so I like that kind of stuff, because he didn't feel like an actor.
Right.
In fact, no one does except for maybe Tom Hanks at times in this movie. And then I like movies like this where there's a headline you read about in the paper, and then you think, I wonder why that happened. Like, how do pirates even get on a ship like that? Like, how is that possible? What could they possibly get out of are they going to drag a cargo container off the ship? Like, I want those questions answered, and of course, you get all that here.
Yeah.
One of the pirates, a guy named Fazal Ahmed, is really good. I'm sorry, there was another pirate that got nominated, or nominated or won an Oscar. I think he got nominated. But one of the other pirates I thought was even better, this Faisal guy. But they're appropriately scary and also human at the same time. Um, the once the movie the story shifts to the lifeboat, I feel like it's not as intense. I mean, that's how the story went. It's just that you go from like this holding onto your seat kind of intense, and then you're in this really claustrophobic space. So I kind of wish there was more of the first part of the movie, but I also want it to be accurate, so I'm a little torn there. Great score by Henry Jackman here, and then I have to mention that I feel like this movie almost has it like it's like a companion piece to All Is Lost, because I noticed because I watched them both this last week. In All Is Lost, his boat strikes a cargo container. That's what kicks off all this bad stuff that happens to Robert Redford's character. It's randomly floating in the ocean.
Right. So it's really a sequel.
Later in the maybe, well, I mean, I wonder if they happen at the same time, because
Yeah.
later in the film he's trying to get rescued and a Maersk container floats by, and it's basically the same as the one in Captain Phillips. So anyway, yeah, this is just a great intense movie made very well. Greengrass does a great job with it. I love it.
Yeah, the Maersk Cinematic Universe, the new MCU we have here. So yeah, that's funny. I'd never caught that before, but yeah, Captain Phillips is an excellent movie. Um, Hanks is incredible here. Specifically, there's a scene at the end where after he's rescued and he's kind of reacting to what's just happened to him. It's just some of the best acting I've ever seen. Yeah, absolutely, just spot on. Felt like a documentary I was watching. So yeah, excellent movie. Only reason I didn't include it, honestly, is because I felt like this is a pirate movie. So I'm saving it for our pirate podcast. Modern day pirate.
You got me on that one.
All right. On to my number 4, which is a classic from the golden age, black and white film, Mutiny on the Bounty, which actually got a remake in the 60s with Marlon Brando. I still haven't seen that version yet. I want to watch it, but the original
With Mel Gibson, right?
Oh, that's right. Mel Gibson did it again. Yeah, in the
That's the one
80s.
I've seen.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so this one released November 8th, 1935. Had one of the biggest budgets for any movie up until that point. It was a budget of 1.95 million, so almost $2 million. Huge budget back then. Ended up doing very well too, grossed almost 5 million. So big hit back in the day. It was promoted as a big extravagant film where they went on location, because back in those days it was all shot on the studio backlot. It was all just sets that they built. And this one they actually went to Tahiti and filmed a lot of the film there. Directed by Frank Lloyd. Not a director I'm super familiar with, but he just did a phenomenal job with this movie. It's a big kind of epic film, 2 hours, 15-minute runtime. Beautiful, just grand visual style, the way he's shooting things, the ships and the water and the locations. Again, it's just really, really nice to look at. It has a couple of stellar lead performances. Clark Gable, who many people know from Gone with the Wind and other films that he made back in the day, as the first mate of this ship called the Bounty, and the captain is Charles Laughton, who's a British actor of renown back then. Went on to direct one of my favorite movies we've talked about, The Night of the Hunter. And so he's just a really good filmmaker. They're great together. They're great on screen. They have great chemistry. They butt heads a lot. They're that kind of, captain, first mate that kind of butt heads and don't see eye to eye and have very different styles. And, the one captain is very, hard nosed and strict and all about discipline. And so they get into a bit of a tussle in the film. And it's got really good character drama. Again, you care about the characters. You care about what they're going through. They really help you get to know the crew. You very much empathize with them, and it's just really well done. It has a certain level of authenticity to it. It is loosely based on real events that did happen that kind of changed maritime law actually at the time. which was kind of big deal. So it's just really well made on every level technically. Again, just the fact that it was shot on location, and that it was again, of course, way before the CGI days, so it's all practical, and so it's very well made. Definitely worth a watch if you're at all interested in older movies, or again just these kind of movies that are set on the water. It's one of my favorites. 4.5 star film. I really enjoy.
Well, and I don't know what they would use for. I mean, today there's these elaborate rigs to get the cameras up in the air to get these sweeping shots, and of course drones now and everything. But
Right.
that would probably have a lot of challenges. Almost 100 years ago, trying
Yes.
to film almost anything on location and not having elaborate rigs or ways to get the camera in creative angles.
Definitely. Yeah, great points. Yeah, definitely a huge technical challenge just to overcome, to do that. Because like I said, most movies back then, we just shoot it on the back lot. We fill up a little water tank and we splash water on some guys, and we kind of try to just make it look as good as we can. But yeah, to do that back then, and some of it is shot like that in parts of the movie, but a lot of it is shot on location, especially when they the ship does arrive at an island at one point, and things like that. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. Bert, we're on to your number three.
It is In the Heart of the Sea,
Nice.
a movie that I watched for the first time, and wow, it's so well made. Ron Howard just when I think I've seen his best movies, along
Yeah.
comes one that could rival some of his best ones.
Right.
Because we did the podcast, right? We rank
Yes.
top films.
Yep.
Oh, you got the Blu-ray there, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just so good at this painting, just a moving kind of drama like this. And of course, true story of the Essex, this whaling ship that was attacked by this whale in 1820. The palette of this movie is just so dreamy. I just love the look of it. How he, displays like the 1800s is perfection. It just takes me right there, basically. And it's just such an exciting story. The action scenes, especially involving the whale, are just they just blew me away. I just wasn't expecting it to be that big and look that good. And is that it's got to be a CGI whale? It doesn't look like a CGI whale. It's just so so much I guess careful work put into pulling off the action scenes, and the acting is really good. And I kind of talked in this way about another film, but it was the Captain Phillips film. There's a point where after most of the attacking has happened, and then it kind of moves into the next sort of phase that kind of closes out the film, and that is pretty. I don't want to say it's long. It's just difficult to sit through because you just kind of wanted to get past that part of the film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're kind of right there on that boat and kind of feeling the desperation of those characters. So I felt like again, this is all a true story, but I wouldn't say I really particularly enjoyed that part of the movie. Very well made and all that,
Right.
but I could have used more of that sort of the first half of the film. So entertainment wise, it dips a little bit. Maybe in the last act of the film. Some interesting things. They're harvesting whale oil. So while I'm watching the movie, I'm like, whale oil. So I'm googling. Why did we? What? Shows my lack of historical knowledge. But now we have crude oil, but back then they didn't. So they had to extract it from the whales. So there's that scene where they have to go in and get it inside the whale. Oh, it's so realistic
Yeah.
and acted very well too. And I have to mention, we talked about the Meg. This is kind of like a serious version of the Meg, except I'm not trying to disrespect this film. This is such a better film, right? But I mean, entertainment wise, I get almost the same out of each. But I mean, the Meg is a throwaway, film.
Right.
But it's just so well made. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and now I got to go find the Blu-ray myself.
Yeah, definitely worth picking up the Blu-ray. Really looks stunning. I'm glad you mentioned the cinematography and the whole look of the film because it is very just different. Just has a different feel to it.
Mhm.
It's realistic, but like you're saying, it is does kind of have like almost a dreamlike quality to some of the scenes, and very well done. A lot of CGI here, but like you're saying, it really is seamless. It's really well done,
It is.
and it definitely has, like I mentioned before, the great cast. Another captain and first mate that butt heads a lot, and that's kind of a trend I think with a lot of these movies, and but it works really well. It makes for effective drama, and
Yeah.
the stakes are high in this movie. Like I said, we're talking about a real event that happened to real guys. I mean, this is just crazy to think about. I cannot imagine being in this situation. But the fact that this is just these guys' lives, like every day, like this, yeah, I'm a whaler. That's like what I do. And
Hundreds of years.
yeah, it's crazy. And I really like the way the film is framed with the future narrative, right? We're seeing Tom Holland's character as an old man,
Yeah.
played by Brendan Gleeson. And I think the actor's name is Ben Whishaw, who's playing Herman Melville, who of course wrote Moby Dick, which is what this is loosely based on. And so, yeah, all that's really well done. I just enjoy
It is. Yeah.
yeah, I enjoy all that a lot. And so, yeah, definitely a movie I've seen, saw it in theaters, saw it numerous times. Again, I've read the book, and it's definitely worth a read because it really goes in more detail of what exactly these guys did endure, which is the movie does a good job of showing, but when you really feel and understand the breadth of it and what it was like, it's just incredible. So glad you have it on the list.
Yeah. It would make a run for top five Ron Howard films if I had to rank them.
Yeah, for sure. All right, excellent. Let's move on to my number three, which is The African Queen. This one released December 26, 1951. Budget of 1 million, ended up grossing over 10 million. And this is a film directed by John Huston, one of my favorite directors of all time. He's done films like The Maltese Falcon, The Man Who Would Be King. So many great classic movies are directed by this guy. He's just a really, really smart director. Runtime of an hour and 45 minutes. It's based on a 1935 novel by C.S. Forester, which I have not read, but I would like to read. And that stars Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn. Bogart and Huston worked together on a number of films throughout their careers. They worked together a lot. They worked together really well. They enjoyed one another's company. Katharine Hepburn, of course, hugely popular actress all the way throughout the 30s and 40s, well into the 50s. And what I like about this is, a lot of actors and actresses can be pretty vain. They always want to look the best they can possibly look, and they want to be the most heroic character they can play on screen and put off this persona. But throughout this whole film, she doesn't have makeup on. She's kind of, whining a lot. She's kind of playing a character that's very unique for her because she was known for playing very strong female characters that, took charge and that kind of thing. And so for her to come in and play this role is really unique for her. But it's a great back and forth these two characters have. They're one of the great odd couple pairings in movie history, I think, because she's playing a Christian missionary in Africa. Her and her brother are, preaching the gospel to the indigenous people, and this is all taking place during World War One. So the Germans come in, and they end up having to flee. And of course, she flees into the arms of Humphrey Bogart, who's playing this very crass, worldly riverboat captain, right? So you have these just, very prim and proper lady with this super, just crude guy. And it's just a really, really great pairing. It's really fun to watch the two interact over the course of the movie. A lot of great comedy, great dialogue, just really good chemistry between these two throughout the whole film. And so, yeah, they're having to kind of survive on this river. The boat is called the African Queen, that he's kind of taking her downriver to safety from, the Germans who are kind of invading this part of Africa at the time. And so it's got some excitement to it, definitely. Again, we're talking way before CGI days, so Early days, sort of like a lot of model work here. So, you'll see a boat going down river rapids, and modernized, you can kind of tell, well, it's just a little toy boat they have on a little river they're going down.
Right.
But it's pretty effective because the way that's intercutting between them on the boat and what we're seeing, the kind of wide shots, it works for me. It holds up pretty well. It's just enjoyable. It's not meant to be super realistic. It's not that kind of movie. It's just kind of a fun adventure comedy, is what I would call it. It's much in the vein of something like Indiana Jones or The Mummy. It's kind of got that kind of vibe to it. So yeah, I just really enjoy it all the way through. Like I said, good blend of comedy and romance and action. Just watching these two characters kind of interact is really fun. John Huston just strikes the perfect balance in this movie that a lot of movies can't quite hit, and he just shoots it really well too. All on location. This is another film that the director was adamant about going to Africa and shooting on real rivers for certain scenes, and in the jungle for other scenes, and so that all comes through on screen, that the kind of authenticity. So one that I've enjoyed a number of times, one of my all-time favorites, 5-star movie for me, African Queen. Check it out.
And I, after hearing you describe it, I've heard of it before, but
Okay.
I think the recent movie Jungle Cruise is the
Ah,
remake.
yeah, kind of is. I'm wearing the Jungle Cruise shirt right here. So you can see it, but yeah, I put it on because Jungle Cruise, the ride, right, at Disney, was,
Oh, it is a ride. I didn't know that.
yeah, Disney was probably inspired by this movie, I would guess, because Disneyland came around the same time in the 50s, right? So yeah, he probably was inspired by the film and said, hey, let's make a ride version of that. And then now, of course, we have the movie based on the ride. So yeah, I have actually, when I remember when Jungle Cruise came out, listening to some interviews with Dwayne Johnson and the director, talking about how this was a movie they rewatched because they kind of were inspired by it. And so
Sure.
yeah, Jungle Cruise, I didn't get a whole lot out of that movie. I wanted it to be a lot better than it was. It kind of was a
Yeah, it's just a
felt like it was trying to be too Pirates of the Caribbean, and just some of the jokes didn't land. The characters didn't
yeah.
quite work for me, but yeah, this was an inspiration for that.
Gotcha.
All right, Bert, we're on to your number two.
It may surprise you, but my
Mm.
number two is Captain Ron.
I haven't seen this. I'm dying to watch it. I couldn't find it. I wanted to watch it, but I couldn't find
Oh,
it.
shoot. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so a family inherits a boat.
Mhm.
Martin Short is the dad. And then he has to hire a boat captain to transport it from the Caribbean to the United States. And this is just one of those that I've watched so many times. It's one of those that you just, you know all the lines, you know everything that's going to happen, but you still laugh when you're watching it. It's not that well known, actually.
Mm.
A lot of people I'll ask, have you watched Captain Ron? And they haven't seen it. Like you.
Right.
The Mary Kay plays his wife. She's got a lot of personality. There's a daughter and son. They're both really good and have some funny lines. The daughter is sort of this angsty teenager. And Kurt Russell as Captain Ron. I mean, I just love him in this role. He's kind of clueless and fun loving and like live for now kind of guy,
Right, right.
island kind of guy. There's some really good music in it. That it's just kind of fun, fun music. But this is so much rewatchability, and I think it's one of those that you probably either love it or hate it. But
Mm.
I've never heard
Yeah.
anybody that saw this movie that didn't really like Captain Ron.
Okay.
There's a fair amount of slapstick, but I mean, honestly, this is one of my favorite comedies. There's just so much situational stuff again that you
Mm.
know it's coming and you still laugh. I watched it this past week again, and I don't know how many times I've seen it, but just laughing all the way through. So, I mean, there's not a ton more I can say about it because it's
Sure.
not one of these where I'm going to be like, um, going on about the cinematography or something like that.
Sure.
But
Sure.
just one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Awesome. Can't wait to watch it. Yeah, I tried to look for it. I couldn't find it streaming anywhere, but yeah, I definitely want to check it out because I've heard good things. And we've already talked about Kurt Russell a couple of times. I guess he's into boats or water or something. I don't know. But yeah, he's such a great actor that I'll watch
Yes.
anything he's in. And not I didn't know it had Martin Short in it because he's one of
Oh.
my favorites as well. So
Well, see, Martin Short is the straight man here.
yeah, that's interesting.
Uh, Yeah, so most of the jokes are at his expense, which he has done in other movies too.
Sure.
It's one of those kind. Yeah.
Great, great, excellent. All right, moving on to my number two, which is Jaws. Jaws is my number two. Released June 20th, 1975. Budget of 9 million. It was the first blockbuster, so it grossed over $476 million. Incredible. People were lined up around the block.
Billion these days. Probably
Oh
over
yeah,
10 billion.
absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, it's Spielberg's Trial by Fire. I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but he just man was put through the ringer on this movie. Nothing worked. The shark didn't work. He went way over budget, way over schedule. But obviously, it ended up paying off. The studio was happy with the results. But and again, I think all of that is probably why it's so great is because whenever artists are forced to get creative, right? That's when they're kind of at their best, and I feel like that's what happened here, and it really forced them. And this is probably in the screenplay. And it's probably I haven't read the book, but it's probably in the book. But it forced them not to focus so much on the shark and more on the humans, the characters, the people that we're supposed to care about. And that's really why the movie works as well as it does. It's not because it's just about this big shark and it's exciting and all that, and that's all there, but it's really because the characters are relatable and likable, and you get where they're coming from. You get kind of why they're doing this, why are they going after this shark, and they all have their own personal reasons for it. And it's just really, really great. The three main characters, Brody, played by Roy Scheider, is just fantastic. He's kind of the heart of the movie. This newly appointed sheriff to this small coastal town who has a fear of water, and he's kind of the family man, and he's kind of to protect his family and his city. And then you have Hooper, played wonderfully by Richard Dreyfuss in one of his earlier roles. He's all about logic, and he's kind of the scientist, marine biologist. He wants to study this thing, and he's just kind of all about curiosity and discovery and exploration. And then, of course, Quint, played by the great Robert Shaw, who is just fantastic. He's a British actor coming in and playing this character. He's this scarred soldier who had this traumatic experience in World War II, the true story of the Indianapolis, which sank, and most of the crew were attacked by sharks. And so he's kind of got that like Captain Ahab personal vendetta going on against the shark. And again, they all just work so well together. They're all such different characters, but they all kind of need each other in a way that's really interesting. And so, yeah, it's just all very well executed, brilliantly shot and directed. And of course, John Williams' score is so simple, but just perfect. So yeah, just a movie that I've enjoyed so many times, and it had to be on the list. So it ended up at number two.
Yeah, and don't miss Dana Carvey's masterful impression of Robert Shaw in Master of Disguise.
Yes, of course. How can I forget? Yes,
One of so
absolutely.
many reasons to watch that movie.
Right.
I knew you would put Jaws on your list. I thought
Yeah.
about putting it on my own, but I knew you were
Yeah.
going to include it. So there you go.
Gotcha. All right, Bert, we're on to our number one favorite maritime movies. What do you have at your number one spot?
Well, that would be Titanic.
Yes. Why I didn't include it on my list is because I knew it'd be on yours.
Right. And I talked at length because we did our top 5 movies of all time. So
Yeah.
I don't know, I might have done 45 minutes on Titanic. No, I probably could have though. So I'll just say a couple things, couple reasons why it's, my number 2 film of all time, and, a great on water film is the lengths that Cameron, well, he always goes to these lengths, but the lengths that he went to create the film, to actually recreate the ship. I mean, it didn't float, but I mean, to build like 2/3 replica or something like that. And just in the theater, I was just spellbound, and really couldn't believe what I was seeing, because I knew it wasn't a CGI, and this was 1997 when it came out, but I knew it wasn't a CGI ship. And so I just loved that amount of detail. And then when the ship raises up, to put you on the top of that, looking down, 500 feet down into the water and seeing all that carnage. I mean, it just was so impactful in the theater. And then the devotion to the historical accuracy, to Cameron's best ability, he got everything right. That at least as far as what the scientists knew as of 1997. I think they've found a couple more things out since then. Um, but uh, but yeah, such a tragic event, and it just puts me right on that ship, like I'm walking on those planks. And I didn't talk about a lot of the other parts of the film, but like I said, I've covered it in full. So 5-star film, second best film of all time for me.
Excellent. Yeah, it's really incredible, and it's incredible again. Talking a lot about these movies with the effects and different things, and how well it holds up. Because CGI, I think, is one of those things that can get dated very quickly. You look at like early day CGI, like early '90s, and some of these movies that kind of just tried to throw CGI in too early, and it just doesn't hold up at all. No, this one fully does. It's just so well done, and like you were mentioning, it blending the practical with the digital
Yeah.
is, I
It's not
think,
that they didn't use any digital effects.
yeah,
It's just that they actually, I know they recreated, a portion of the ship, and I just
yeah,
love that they did that for a movie.
right.
I mean, it's just incredible.
It is. It is. Yeah, the craftsmanship that goes into it. We don't think about when we're watching a movie. We just kind of, oh yeah, they made that. But just think about that, like real guys had to build something for them to shoot on for weeks and months, and now it's probably been destroyed or maybe is sitting in a warehouse. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible what they went through, and yeah, it definitely also has a great cast. We know Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet have gone on to have amazing careers, but even this young, they're doing a great job with what they're given, and it's all very very well done. So yeah, excellent choice.
Yeah. One more thing about the sets. That's something I
Mm,
try to pay attention to when I watch
hmm.
movies, because
Yeah,
I think they can easily be taken for granted.
yeah.
I like to try to figure out, is that a real set, or is it
Mm,
CGI, or what am I,
right.
is it a green screen?
Yeah.
And when you can tell it's the real set, I mean, it can truly make you appreciate it. And a lot of these films have that going on.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Amazing stuff. Okay. Well, we're on to my number one favorite maritime film, and that is Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World. Oh, that's the wrong one. Here it is. um, yeah, so I had seen this a couple times before, and this is one of those movies that, for me, every time I watch it, I like it more. I really think that it does incredible. It's incredibly authentic. That's the word I would use to describe it. Um, Maybe to a fault. Maybe I get some of the criticism that you mentioned earlier, and I'll talk about Crow and his performance in a moment. But I just feel like if you want to see a movie about what life on the water is like, specifically in 1805 when this takes place, this is the movie to watch. I mean, the terminology they're using, all very authentic. The actions they're taking aboard this ship is all extremely realistic and exactly what they would have done. I mean, the research that went into this movie is incredible. It's based on a book, actually a series of books, not based on a true story, but based on historical events, the Napoleonic Wars that were going on. Um, these books, there's 20 books in the series. They released between 1969 and 2004 was the last one that was published. So it's a long running book series, and they just did such a good job of again bringing us into the world of a naval vessel at this era in time. Um, there, it's one of those films that it feels like it's a window into history. I feel like I'm transported back in time when I watch this movie. Again, just because of how real everything feels. Again, they really built the boat, like you were mentioning earlier. Very little CGI in this film. This was '03, so it would have been very rough CGI anyway, but a lot of it is real. A lot of it is practical. They built the boat. These guys are really on a boat out in the water
Really,
for much of the film. Yeah, it's incredible.
that's impressive. Yeah.
Grueling uh, production on this movie. Peter Weir directed it. He's a director I really like. He did movies like Witness, that I'm a big fan of, and other films. But yeah, he really just wanted it to be as authentic as possible. And he definitely achieved it, I think. Lee Smith is the editor. I think he does a really good job editing the film. It had a $150 million budget. Only grossed $213 million, so it wasn't considered a success at the time. It was released in, like I said, November 14th, 2003. They were planning on doing actually several sequels, but those didn't happen because it was gonna, because so many books that they wanted to adapt, and
I never would have guessed that with this film.
yeah, I know. Yeah, it doesn't beg a sequel really, but there's so many books. It's not fast paced either, you know, like you're saying, it's not one of these like big summer blockbuster movies. It's very like deliberately paced. It's again all about really the realism and putting you into the shoes of these sailors. And I think they do again a great job with all that. Crow, I think he's such a great actor that even when he's playing characters like this, who, you know, I get why you think he's unlikable, and I understand that. For me, he's
entirely unlikable.
Yeah. For me, he's having to make such difficult decisions. That's a big part of this guy's job as a captain, and as you know, I'm sure any captain would tell you in the military, you have to really make some difficult choices as you're kind of having to keep a crew together and keep the chain of command intact and all these things. So I really like his character. He's to me a very strong leader. He makes these difficult decisions, but he sticks to his guns basically. But I like how he's juxtaposed with Paul Bettany, who I think is also fantastic here. And these two are really great friends, but they kind of butt heads a lot. They don't see eye to eye on every issue. And so he kind of challenges him. Yeah.
A beautiful mind. So you wonder, because they have that sort of a chemistry.
Yes, absolutely. They have great chemistry together. They're very, trusted friends, but opponents at times as well. And so I think that whole relationship is played out very well, very strong. The younger actors here are fantastic. A lot of people probably don't even know that kids at age of 13 or 14 would go aboard these vessels and go on these long voyages. It's kind of crazy to think about now, but yeah, that's a coming of age thing. You would join the military and off you would go on the high seas. And so it's just, again, all very well done. Strong sense of camaraderie between the crew. You get the sense that these are real friends, guys that hang out, and that's because the cast did hang out all the time on this boat. They were shooting out on the water. So yeah, right. So every element of sea life is displayed. The warfare, the battle scenes, I think, are excellent. All of that stuff is just really, really well done. It kind of feels like a throwback almost to the Golden Age. I thought a lot about Mutiny on the Bounty while I was watching it. It just feels like one of those big budget kind of epic movies that are really made for adults. They're really made for, like, it's not a 4-quadrant blockbuster anyone can watch. It's kind of like, this is kind of like a serious drama. It's a real life thing. And so I just appreciated that about it. I feel like we don't get a lot of those movies anymore. So yeah, just excellent all the way around. I had a blast watching it this last time I watched it. I just think it is as good as it gets when you're talking about movies set on the water. So made number 1.
Very good. And as I said, it's not bad. I think I'm at 3 stars on it, so I enjoy it.
Sure. Yeah, it's one of those that first time I watched it, I probably would have rated it the same thing, and then just every subsequent viewing, it's just kind of gone up in my mind. Now it's just one of my favorites. I really, really enjoy it. Okay, folks. Well, that is it for our list. Give us your top 5 movies set on the water in the comments below. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. Thank you, Bert, for joining me.
Yep, absolutely.
It was a lot of fun. Make sure you follow us on social media. Bert and I are both on Letterboxd, so those links are in the description below. You can follow us there. Great app for movie fans. Join us next week on the podcast, episode 60. Blue Beetle will be in theaters, so we're going to talk about our favorite superhero origin movies. That should be a lot of fun. Again, follow us on social media and stay up to date on all that we have on the channel, reviews, of my Blu-ray collection, and all kinds of other things are going to be there. So join us. We'll see you next time right here on The Real World.